Okay, so this video will just take you through a summary of chapters 3, 4 and 5 for the ICT revision theory for your theory test coming up tomorrow morning. Now, chapters 3, 4 and 5 focus on your storage devices and media networks and the effects of using ICT. So let's get straight into it. Storage devices and media, which is chapter 3. This is what the exam board expect you to be able to do. So you're expected to be able to describe the following common backing storage media and their associated devices. So fixed hard disks, portable hard disks, magnetic tapes, optical backing storage media such as CDs, DVDs, CD-ROMs, etc., etc., etc. Solid state backing storage, memory sticks, pen drives, and flash memory cards. So that's what you're expected to be able to understand a little bit about. You're expected to be able to categorize them, so which ones are optical, which ones are magnetic, which ones are solid state, which ones are serial access or direct access, which ones are more portable, which ones are better for different jobs. So if you're not familiar with all of these, then you may want to go back through and check over some notes on it. I am going to summarize them now, but I won't be going through all of them in great detail. For chapter 3.2, you're expected to be able to identify typical uses of storage media, including the types of access, so serial or sequential, direct access, and their speeds. And you're expected to be able to describe the comparative advantages and disadvantages of using different backing storage media, to define the term backup, and to describe the need for taking backups, and to describe the difference between the main and internal memory backing storage stated the relative benefits for each in terms of speed and permanence. So we'll go straight into it, and we'll start with our main definitions. The definition between data storage and backing. Okay, so data storage is where we put data in a known place, which is the save process, which we can come back to later and get the data back again, which is the read process, the save and read process. This is data storage. Data storage essentially can be on any device. It's quite often your main computer's hard drive where you store your data. If you store your data to a different storage medium, then this is when it's called backing storage. So backing storage is the process of using a storage device to copy a file and data to a different storage medium in case of a problem with the original copy. So you have stuff saved on the original computer. That would just be regular data storage. It's not taking a backup until you make a copy of it and put it somewhere else. So we've got the other understanding of the difference between your computer's memory and the backing storage. So your RAM, or your computer's operational memory, is temporarily stored and it's volatile. So when it's switched off, the computer wipes the RAM, and it's only used to store data that's currently in use, but it's very fast at reading and writing data. Now, if you then save your data to your hard drive, or to an external source, or to a backing storage device, then your data is then permanently stored. It's non-volatile, so it's not erased when your computer's turned off. It's used to store data over a longer period of time. It has a slower read-write process, and examples of the permanent storage device will include your hard disk drive, so that's inside your computer usually. DVDs or flash memory sticks are all examples. So let's have a look at a little bit more detail at the difference between some of our terms here. We've got serial access and direct access. So serial access is when all of the data is accessed sequentially in serial, meaning that the computer must read the first part of the data before it can next read the next part of the data, and so on and so forth. This is typical for an old magnetic tape. If you've ever listened to music on one of these magnetic tapes, or if you've ever watched a video on an old VHS, you have to watch it in order. You can fast forward, but you can't jump to different parts of the film. This is serial access. So it is very slow, but it's useful when large amounts of data need to be stored without the importance of the speed of access. So a lot of very large backups for big businesses and banks and things will actually be backed up on large magnetic tapes. The other benefit of serial access is that it's sometimes used when you're running something like batch processing for payroll or for something like that, because it ensures that every piece of data is read in order. So there's never a risk of missing a file by using serial access. Direct access is the most common modern method used today. It's immediate access to all data. You just jump straight to the file that you want. And it is currently available on all solid state, all optical data media, and most of our magnetic media. So let's have a look at the difference between those. We've got magnetic, solid state, and optical. These are the three categories of storage. Your magnetic media holds data magnetically, okay? So you can usually identify this by its a black film or a black tape. So on the back of your debit card, you'll see a black stripe, okay? That's a magnetic stripe. Or, as I said, inside a tape cassette or a VHS, we'll use the black tape. And if you've ever opened up and looked inside a floppy disk, there is a very flexible black disk. Looks a little bit like a mini CD. These are magnetic devices, and the surface area of the media are magnetized so they can hold bits of data, and the data that is read, the media, so also reads the bits held on the surface area. So this is magnetic media. One of the advantages of magnetic media is you can actually store huge amounts of data magnetically. It's not particularly complicated to store massive files, but it's not particularly easy to regain access to, because a lot of magnetic media is still sequential in access. And then we have optical media. So optical media holds data by burning dots onto the surface of a shiny disc by using a high-powered laser. The optical media is always read using light. Now, usually that light is a red laser that scans over the top of the disc. In the case of Blu-ray, the reason it's called Blu-ray is because the colour of the light that reads the data is not red; it's blue, and that's because blue light transmits at a higher frequency, so it can see more detail in the actual burn holes on the disc, and so you can store more data. That's why it's higher definition. And then you've got solid state media, which holds data on devices that have no moving parts. Things like your pen drive would be solid state media. And a lot of modern hard disks that you can buy for internal computers are solid state media today as well. Okay, so here are our different optical media types. Notice they are all direct access. Now, you should be familiar with the majority of these terms. CD stands for compact disc, whereas DVD stands for digital versatile disc. Now, where you have ROM, R or RW, okay, you've got ROM meaning read only, so you can read from it, but you can't change it. So when artists release albums or movies are released on DVD, those discs are fixed, so you can't wipe them and write back over them. Those are ROM discs. And then you have R discs, which are readable, so you can read the data from this disc. You can put data on them once and then continue to read from it. Whereas RW is read and write. So where we have read and write, you can write over the disc as many times as you need. DVD RAM is although we know RAM to be random access memory, the reason it uses RAM in this case is because it actually keeps a volatile storage memory of things that you're doing at that moment in time. So essentially it is reading from the disc and writing to the disc at the same time. One example of this is when you have a smart TV and you're watching a program and you're recording another program at the same time. That is known as DVD RAM. And then Blu-ray disc, as I said before, it's just a high definition version of a CD-ROM Blu-ray in many cases, especially when you're buying it for high definition music or movies. And the only difference is that the light that reads the Blu-ray disc is blue light rather than red light, so it can see in greater detail because of the frequency of the light. So these are optical media. Magnetic medias and solid state medias. As you can see, all of my solid state medias are also direct access, but not all of my magnetic medias are. The old magnetic tape is still a serial access. So common mistake is people often presume that your hard disk drive inside your computer is solid state. Not often, okay? Only on very modern recent computers will you find solid state hard drives. Quite often the fixed hard disk inside your computer is a magnetic storage media, and it has a disk that spins and writes too. So fixed hard disks, portable hard disks, floppy disks, magnetic tape, all examples of magnetic media. Solid state hard disks, pen drives, flash cards, micro memory cards, SIM cards, etc. All examples of solid state media. They don't have any moving parts. So these ones tend to be more robust and a little bit more portable in many cases, but obviously significantly more expensive as modern media goes. Okay, so a comparison here from the different types of media, from magnetic all the way through to the different optical discs and so on and so forth. And these two tables are just comparing on two elements. This table compares on the amount of data stored, the capacity, and this one compares on the speed of access. Now, if you visit ICT Lounge, you can also see comparison tables for the price or the portability of these devices. But if we were to look at, say, the amount of data that's able to be stored, a really low storage capacity, we start at floppy disks. Those are really, really quite ridiculously low in storage capacity. And our basic CDs, compact disks, have relatively small storage capacity in comparison to DVDs, and then Blu-ray, and then micro SD cards, memory sticks, and then we get into the solid state hard drives, fixed hard disks, portable hard disks. And as you can see right at the top there, magnetic tape. You can get magnetic tape that can store huge sums of data, which is why it's quite often used as a backing storage for large servers. So from lowest to highest capacity, or from the speed of accessing the data. Now right back down at the bottom, although it's the highest storage capacity, it has the slowest access speed, magnetic tape. Followed by floppy disk. Floppy disk kind of loses the race in every occasion except for price, probably. Although today they're probably a collector's item. They're that old, so they're probably quite expensive again. But as you move up through the speed of access, you'll notice that our optical media are pretty medium speed of access, whereas right at the top here are solid state medias. Memory sticks, solid state hard drives and micro SD cards, etc. have the highest speed of access, whereas if we were to talk about their storage capacity, they're only pretty medium in storage capacity. So it really does depend upon what job you want your storage device to do as to which storage device you should recommend. They all have their advantages and their disadvantages. Chapter 4, networks. So I just want to start with a couple of keywords that you need to remember, and those key acronyms. So LAN, local area network; WAN, wide area network; WLAN is not a wide local area network. That would be a contradiction in terms. It is a wireless local area network. You might not have come across this one before, WPAN. I've thrown it in because it's a relatively modern and recent development that has been started to be classified as a network, and just in case the exam board decide to throw something new at you, it's called a WPAN, which is a wireless personal area network. It's basically when you connect your phone to your speakers using Bluetooth, or you know, you've all got those little AirPod Apple headphone thingies. Well, those connect to your phone using a Bluetooth connection device, and essentially that's a network. It's two devices connecting to one another, sharing data and information, but only on a very localized personal area. So we would call it a wireless personal area network. And then within the networks, we have things called servers and client computers. So the server is the main storage and control machine for the networks. That's where all of my software goes. It's where all of my files get stored. It's where all of my updates happen. This is the device that connects to the internet and has the antivirus on it and the firewall around it and so on and so forth. And then the client computers. These guys haven't actually really got anything stored on them. They're just a window into the network, and they contact the server. Client computers are quite often called workstations, the workstation on the network, or possibly also known as nodes, a node on a network. Okay, moving forward. I've not gone through all of the different topologies because I think we've probably done that enough now, but if you wish to look back over your network topologies, again, you can see the notes on ICT Lounge, but you should have your own notes of that. But it is important that you know your network devices. So here I've listed the 7 network devices that you could be expected to identify. A router, a network interface card, network cable, hubs, switches, bridges and modems. Okay, so we'll start with the router. This device most commonly is used to connect a computer to the internet. The general purpose of a router is to send data between different types of networks. So for example, from a LAN to a WAN, okay, which is why it's used to connect individual computers to the internet, because the internet is the biggest example of a WAN we have, okay? So routers. Not always used to connect to the internet. It could be used to connect to completely different types of networks to form some kind of a corporate network. If you had a star device, a star network working in one building, and you had a ring network with a bus network hybrid working in another building, you could use a router to link the two together. Okay, the network interface card. We don't come across this very often anymore because modern computers come with them built in. But basically it means that old computers that didn't come with a network interface card, in order to access a network, you had to buy one of these and attach it to the motherboard of the computer to enable the computer to access a network. Network cables. So we see these in any non-wireless network. The most common type of this is called an Ethernet cable. It's sometimes shortened to a Cat5, Category 5 cable, which then transmits data from one device to another. Hubs and switches. So hubs are the non-intelligent devices generally used in the centre of a star network to send data from one device to another. Hubs can't read IP addresses, so when a hub receives a message from one device, from one client computer, it doesn't know exactly where to send that device to, so it sort of broadcasts out to all of the active nodes on the network and then hopes that the correct node receives the message. Now this is quite time consuming and energy wasting and unsecure if you're sending personal data and so on and so forth, secured data across your network. You're probably not going to want to use a hub for that reason. So the switch comes in, and the switch is the more expensive alternative to the hub, which can read IP addresses and so is considered an intelligent device. And as an intelligent device, it receives a message, compares it to its little IP address table, which is like an address book that it keeps inside its main memory storage, and then figures out where to send that data, and it sends it directly to the recipient device. Bridges, these will only ever connect 2 networks. So if you think of a bridge across a river, you're just connecting the 2 points of land. Usually, or rather, these devices will always be used to connect the same type of network, so a LAN to a LAN, and usually with the same topology as well. And a modem. Now modems are becoming less popular as well because most routers have modems built in, but a modem stands for modulator demodulator, and this is a device that's used to convert data from analog to digital and back again from digital to analog in order to send information down telephone lines. So digital data on the computer must be converted into analog data, as in sound, to be able to be transmitted down a phone line. And the sound data that was received must be converted back into digital in order for the computer to then read it. So this is when your sending requests to the internet, to a web server, and your web connections are still transmitted using phone lines. Okay, so these are your main network devices. What about the internet versus the intranet? So you need to be familiar with these two terms, read questions carefully, because it's easy to misread these words and think that you're answering about the internet when really the question's about the intranet. So the term internet comes from the phrase international network, whereas the term intranet comes from the phrase internal restricted access network. So we can see one is international and one is internal. So the internet, the international system, is obviously our global wide area network used to provide information, accessed anywhere so long as you've got your internet connection. Whereas the intranet is internal within a company or an organisation, storing and sharing data locally, providing information relevant to that single organisation, and can only be accessed from within the company. So they're usually password protected, and they can be great areas to post and share things like links to other sites that are relevant to that company or organisation. So if you think about when you go onto the school intranet, you can see all of the links to the common pages that we use, like Plato and so on and so forth. Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. I've popped this one in here because it's quite often that you get asked about things like why would somebody choose to connect their network using Bluetooth or something like that, which is quite a strange question. So just to give you an idea of the advantages and disadvantages of these devices, of these connection methods. So for example, data speed, Wi-Fi is the winner in this. So because Wi-Fi can transfer speeds of up to 250 megabytes per second, whereas Bluetooth can only transfer 25. The signal range. The Wi-Fi has a limit of up to 100 meters, whereas most Bluetooth will only have a limit of up to 10 meters. So again, the winner is Wi-Fi. When it comes to security, Wi-Fi can be encrypted at a much higher rate, at 256-bit encryption, whereas Bluetooth can only be encrypted to 128-bit encryption. So the encryption is not as complex in Bluetooth. However, power usage is a lot better for Bluetooth. It uses much less power than Wi-Fi. So if you've got devices that have limited battery, like mobile phones, you would quite often turn to Bluetooth to connect. And signal reliability. Bluetooth signal is not as prone to interruption as Wi-Fi signal is. So another benefit of using Bluetooth. But the maximum number of devices to be connected, you can connect up to 255 devices per router using Wi-Fi, whereas you can only connect up to 7 devices using Bluetooth. So for the size of the organisation, it's quite often Wi-Fi. And these reasons are why the personal area network, the PAN, is quite often used Bluetooth, because you don't need more than 7 devices if it's just you. You're likely to be within 10 meters of your telephone or your speakers or whatever else, and the speed of data transfer, it's if you're simply listening to music and so on and so forth, then it's not necessary to have the significant data transfer that's offered with Wi-Fi. So these are some of the reasons why Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Okay, so last one for this session now is chapter 5, the effects of using ICT. So for this chapter, you need to think about ICT and employment. And there's 2 categories of ICT and employment. You need to think about things like reduction of employees in menial labour, repetitive tasks, and the replacement of them with computerised systems. So improvement in software for payroll and administrative tasks has reduced the amount of staff needed working in offices. And staff working in factories will have been replaced by robotics. Think about the advantages and disadvantages for this to the company and to the employee. But also think about the increase of employment in other fields. So where certain sectors have grown, there are new employments today that weren't available 10, 15, 20 years ago. Think about how ICT has affected working patterns within organisations. So think about the availability of people to work from home, job sharing, flexible hours, compressed hours, all because of the technology that enables people to share data and to be more connected with one another as colleagues. To describe microprocessor controlled devices in the home and the impacts that these would have on our lifestyle, both positive and negative. So we'll look at those in a moment. And describing the potential health problems related to the prolonged use of ICT. So I'm not going to go into the employment stuff because that's pretty commonsensical. And if you need to read back over it, please do so. But I will concentrate here on chapters 5.3 and 5.4. Okay, so 5.3, microprocessor controlled devices in the home. We're talking about our smart homes and smart devices like washing machines, alarm systems, heating systems, and intelligent ovens. Any device that you can program to carry out a certain task, either on a timer or dependent upon temperatures or dependent upon the contents of the task, telling the washing machine whether it's cotton or silk or nylon or whatever else that's being used, will impact the washing machine's ability to control things, or are you having to manually set all of your temperatures and so on and so forth? That's not a smart machine. Whereas a smart machine that would have a microprocessor, you can give it certain instructions and then it is able to program and process what it needs to do with that. Alarm systems using sensors to detect intruders or to alert the user to a problem. Heating systems, again, using sensors and thermostats in the room to monitor room temperature, to then have an output, so turning the aircon on, or automatic windows opening and closing for climate control. And intelligent ovens that can that can even read barcodes on packaging and then set the temperature to the cooking time. So you can literally scan your meal or your ready meal on across the front of the oven, and then just simply place it in a baking tray and pop it in, and the oven does the rest. So there are lots of new modern devices coming into the households today that offer simplification of tasks. Well, what are some of the positive advantages of these impacts? We do find an increase in leisure time because there's less time spent doing the things that you would have already done so. Now, this is both leisure time and free time, of course. So however you choose to spend your time away from the oven or the washing machine, etc., etc. An increase in fitness for a lot of people, because a lot of people are using microprocessor controlled devices to improve their personal fitness and to have the time to do so. Of course, you have the complete opposite, and a cultural, social implication will mean that some people will use these devices to become more lazy and to actually have a decrease in fitness. For lots of people, we have improvements in relaxation as a result of these microprocessor controlled devices and the jobs that they do for us, and an increase in productivity, especially for work-related tasks for people who work in offices and so on and so forth. They can be far more productive using these devices than the manual methods. You also need to be able to think of the counterbalance of the disadvantages of these devices in people's lives, and think of the impact socially on technology today, and how it's reduced the ability for people to be able to actually speak face to face and hold conversations and things, because people are so used to using these devices. What about our health implications? So we split the health implications into three categories here: RSI, back and neck pain, and eye strain. So all you need to be able to do is to identify what it is, the causes of it, and how to prevent it. So RSI is repetitive strain injury. It's a swelling in the tendons in the wrist and in the fingers from repeated movements of the same type of movement. So this could be typing, it could be clicking, it could be people using game controllers in a certain way. So our causes: typing on the computer for too long, using a mouse, holding the mouse incorrectly, typing on the keyboard with incorrect posture, or working in a cramped workspace. How to prevent: take breaks to rest your hands. Use an ergonomic keyboard. That's a keyboard that's designed for people. So you might have a keyboard where the shape of the keyboard is curved rather than straight, to enable your hands to sit at an angle, so that they're not straight out from the front of the wrist, but a slight angle curved in, which is a slightly more natural position to rest your hands in. An ergonomic mouse, like a rollerball, these funny shaped mice that you see. A wrist rest, which is a sort of a gel support at the front of your keyboard that allows you to rest your wrist whilst you type. And ensuring that you've arranged enough workspace so there's enough space to be able to work comfortably. Backache and neck ache. So again, working in a cramped space. Not sitting upright in your chair or sitting with poor posture, and incorrect positioning of the computer screen can all feed to this. So again, taking regular breaks is useful. Using an adjustable chair so you can sit in the suitable position for your height. Remember, everybody has a different height and shape, so adjustable chairs are necessary when working with computers for long periods of time, so that you can change it depending upon the user. Sitting upright against the backrest, so not slouching. Tilting the computer screen so it is set just below your eye level. You should always look just ever so slightly down onto your computer screen. Keeping your feet flat on the floor or using a footrest, and keeping your workspace tidy to prevent having to adjust your body around your workspace. And the last one then is eye strain. So the causes of eye strain is staring at the computer screen for too long, or working in a room with bad lighting, glare or flicker on the computer screen. If you're working next to a window with open blinds and you have full sunlight coming in, you're going to have glare on your computer screen, which is going to cause it make it more difficult for you to be able to focus. And dirt on a screen can cause you to strain as well. So ensuring that your screen is regularly cleaned. So again, to prevent, take regular breaks. Use TFT screens rather than CRT screens, as they have less flicker and glare. If you don't know what a TFT screen rather than a CRT screen is, you need to watch the video that I posted yesterday. Use an anti-glare screen to help reduce screen glare. So you can actually put almost like a film, like the kind of material that you would have on sunglasses, in front of your screen. So it's like a sunglasses for your screen to reduce the amount of glare that's produced. And to ensure that the room lighting is good with no direct light, to keep your screen clean of dirt, and have your eyes tested regularly. All of these things can contribute to preventing eye strain. Okay, so the next session will take you through chapters 6, 7 and 8.